I know the show isn't exactly a staple in modern television, but it was interesting.
You stinky pink bitch.
How dare you utter my birth name?
But as quirky and strange as the show is, there are times when it feels like the story is hinting at something deeper. What was once a comedy trio's play about three women all named Deborah became a decently funded surrealist masterpiece about three rich housewives in suburbia, who, while codependent on one another, remain objectively bad people who seldom grow from their mistakes and adventures.
We killed your pool boy. He died instantly. Did you at least clean up the mess?
No, I figured the pool boy would clean it up.
He didn't?
It aired on Adult Swim from 2020 to 2022 and is from the minds of Sandy Honig, Alyssa Stoneha, and Mitra Jahari. The women aren't just creative minds, but excellent at bringing the core of their characters to life via acting, because even characters on the most batshit shows have some depth, right?
I'm gonna look inward and make some big changes to my personality. I'm getting fake tits.
Deborah is the one in control, the one whose house they go to for brunch daily, and the one who could be considered their de facto leader.
I invited you over for brunch, and I don't remember putting your pussies on the menu!
Deborah is the cold, logical one. She's the only one who has a kid, but she doesn't like him.
Don't look at me, I would never have sex. She means Deborah.
Deborah is the one with the most heart, but she's also the most desperate and chaotic.
I'm so sorry about them. All women except for me are crazy.
The show features weird and constantly moving comedy that transports the viewer into what feels like a liminal space, but a few episodes can be read as something deeper, and kind of sad.
My house is the only place where I feel in control. I need to be in charge because I don't have any real autonomy in my life.
These women rarely show emotion that isn't hyperbolized and discarded for the sake of their 11-minute adventures, but that doesn't stop the viewer from picking up on a sense of hopelessness beneath the confidence. In fact, despite having the same hobbies, being codependent, and all being housewives named Deborah, the three women have distinct fears. Deborah is afraid of losing the control she has over her life. Deborah regrets her status quo and feels like she's wasting her potential, and Deborah worries that she's looked to as lesser than, especially by her friends.
There's nothing in my life worth saving.
Yeah.
And all of these fears relate to their roles as housewives, which brings up the big disclaimer that always resurfaces with these topics. It's great to be a housewife when that's what an individual wants. It's about choice, right? In fact, Deborah seems to relish in her role to an extent, but these women exist in a world where they don't love their husbands and don't enjoy much in life except having what others don't. I don't think this show is criticizing the idea of being a housewife, but rather the lack of being authentic. It's a take on affluent suburbia, not home life in general. It's the reason most media that touches on similar topics, like Stepford Wives and Don't Worry Darling, or that one storyline in Why Women Kill, take place in a setting that is reminiscent of the 50s or 60s. It's when this role was one of the few choices and often led to many feeling unfulfilled. Women didn't choose the role, but rather it was thrust upon them and met with little to no appreciation. Their work wasn't met with proper respect. When you turn to modern portrayals of housewives, or any stay-at-home spouse, it appears more often that the character chose and actively enjoys that lifestyle. Hip hip hooray. Is this 50s, 60s approach usually whitewashed and exclusive to the more palatable form of the housewife? Absolutely. But weirdly, Three Busy Debras focuses on themes of class, sexuality, gender, and privilege.
Why aren't you all celebrating? Isn't this exactly what I wanted?
But meaningful answers aren't provided, and that's okay. Sometimes the intrigue is in the exploration of the topic alone. And the Debras are affluent housewives not by choice, but by a weird force of destiny. It's almost like Deborah is a title and not a name.
We're all Debras here.
In the season 1 finale, the three Debras go on Debspringa, where they get to live different lives for a day and decide whether they want to return home to being the three Debras. It's just Rumspringa. Deborah, the implied eldest, returns to high school to have a lighthearted teen story about overcoming obstacles.
Ow! That stings.
Deborah has an implied affair in which she smiles more than she does in the rest of the show combined. Deborah is a hotshot politician who feels like she's making a difference.
Every woman in Lemon Curd will be implanted with a mandatory tracking device. For safety and also for fun.
These fantasies of escaping from their current lives all correspond with their insecurities. Deborah returns to a time where the world is still her oyster and she has control over her future. Deborah isn't with her husband, who she hates and who hates her, and can be authentically happy instead of fulfilling a role. Deborah is taken seriously and impacting lives instead of being treated like an afterthought. This episode is unsettling because it shows the characters being complex in a way the show hadn't allowed them to be yet. And yet, despite being objectively happier in their alternative lives, they are all shown at the brunch table the next day, having returned to the status quo. And this?
So we all came back.
Of course we did.
What else would we do?
Viewers aren't supposed to like the Debras, they're bad people. But I think the show choosing to rarely elicit empathy makes the moments in which it happens more impactful. The Debras will forever be this version of themselves because, despite craving it, they all fear change and fear a deviation from their comfortable status quo.
Status quo! Status quo! Status quo!
I've always been a fan of shows that criticize girl boss culture by demonstrating how easily it impacts women who think of themselves as empowered. Princess Bubblegum, Harley Quinn, Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. We aren't supposed to support every decision they make, just like we aren't meant to support the Debras. But it's an interesting look into how often we conflate empowered women doing morally yikesy stuff as good, and Three Busy Debras may make the most obvious connection. The Debras are bad, but they're fun to watch. After all, I can milk what I can from its 2-season run, but the show's primary purpose is comedy. We're supposed to turn it on, laugh, and then forget about its surrealist plots the second the next episode comes on screen.
You wasted valuable resources and falsified a police report, and for that, you get a medal, Mr. Cool.
Spoilers for the final episode, but this is why their deaths are played up for comedy while also being kind of depressing.
If I'm gonna die, I don't want to be with my son. I want to be with my loved ones.
As these three women look back on their lives, they didn't know what was important to them. They didn't know what to spend their final hours doing or who to be with. They just had brunch into the end of the world. Damn.
No!